Welcome everyone to the second video on disc brakes. My name is David Lee. I am the Honda PACT coordinator at Tidewater Community College. I'm the lead instructor in our program. I am a Honda Master Tech and an ASC Master Tech also, and I'm the one that's the voice that you hear in the back of the videos. I want to take a couple of minutes. I got some feedback from some of my students and friends who've watched the video, tell me how I'm doing. So I wanted to give you a little bit of information on the video before we get started. First thing is safety. Okay, anytime you're working in the shop, you need to make sure that you're wearing the proper safety equipment. In our school, all students and instructors are required to wear safety glasses, shoes, leather shoes, long pants, and I always recommend gloves along with those, because a lot of the things that we deal with are not exactly friendly to our skin. Brakes in particular, there's a lot of bad stuff associated with brakes chemical wise, brake cleaners, brake fluid. There is the potential for asbestos in the brake pads and shoes. Even without asbestos, it's some really nasty dust that's generated. So sometimes we even wear masks when we're working on the brakes. One thing we always want to make sure of is that we use the appropriate chemicals when we're trying to clean the brakes. That means brake cleaner or brake wash station. That does not mean compressed air. You really don't want to use compressed air to blow the dust and debris off of your brakes and put that in the air. It is not good for you to breathe. Okay. Also, the brake fluid, while it's not great for our hands, it's also really bad for paint. So we want to make sure we protect the car appropriately. All the painted surfaces, we just want to be careful when we're using brake fluid anytime around the car. We also want to make sure we don't get it all over the floor, track it on the floor, because it's very slippery and we don't want to, slip and fall or hurt ourselves or somebody else that might be working near us. Okay, also been asked about the tools. In the first video, it didn't look like I was using hardly any tools because I'd already broken all the parts loose, just for simplicity of showing the video. The following tools I did use on the car during the first video and the video that's coming up. I used a 3/8 drive long handled ratchet. I used 14 and 17 millimeter sockets, a 2-inch extension. I used a 3/8 drive torque wrench, 19 millimeter combination wrench. I used the pad retractor tool. I used high temperature copper caliper grease, and also used some wire to hold the caliper up out of the way while I was working on it. Those are the basics of the tools. Now, that will differ depending upon the car that you're working on. If you are working on a Chevy, it's going to be a little bit different. The basics are still there, but it's going to be different size wrenches. The way you're going to go at the attachment points might be a little bit different, but the concepts are the same, and the basics, if you followed that video, you'll be able to do it on your own vehicle. And of course, if you're a tech in a shop, you're going to have all the tools anyway. If you're a new tech, these are all basic hand tools. You don't need a whole lot of specialized tools for doing disc brakes, with the exception of that pad retractor. That's about the only one that is a unique tool that you wouldn't normally have in your toolbox. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the video. Alright, we are ready to put the caliper back on. Before we do, have to talk about a couple of things that we have to do with the piston in the caliper. This piston, when we've got old pads on here, make sure we can see it good here, this piston is going to be out because the pads have worn. So we have to retract that. Now, Honda has a really nice tool for doing that. Here's the tool right here. It just slots right into place. You crank it down, and it pushes the piston back in. Works great. Not everybody's going to have this. So if you don't have that, we have an aftermarket tool here. Works just as well. Sits right in here. You spin it down. The difference is we need a pad here. We can't push on the piston. If we push on the piston, we run the risk of damaging the piston. It's going to push it in crooked more than likely. So we have to put an old pad, put one of our old pads right here, and then this part will push on the old pad. Some cars, some manufacturers, this piston is actually made out of a type of plastic. We try to push straight on that piston, we're going to break the piston. So we always want to make sure we got a pad in there. All right. You can also use a C-clamp here to here, again, with the pad in place. Or worst case scenario, we're going to take a big set of channel locks and we're going to grab on that pad and the backside and squeeze in here. That is going to be our least attractive option, but it is still doable. Just grab it like this. But again, make sure you got a pad there. All right. So I'm ready to put this guy back in. We got to put a little lube on here. Again, we're going to use our high temperature caliper grease, and we're just going to slide this guy back in. Make sure our boot is back in place. Squeeze our pads together, drop it down, throw our other bolt in, and we're ready to torque. Okay, so I have previously looked these up. So our caliper is going to be 37. So I'm going to grab my trusty torque wrench, and in this case we do need to hold the wrench here so that this guy does not spin. So I'm going to put my wrench right in there, grab my torque wrench, bring it in, and there we go, got it torqued. Same thing up here at the top. Just going to swap hands for clearance. And there we go. All right. The next one that we have to do are those caliper mounting bolts. They're a little bit farther in. So we're going to have to go in here. These guys are 80 foot-pounds. So I'm going to run my wrench up. Okay, got it for 80 foot-pounds. This is going to take a little bit more effort. There's one. There's two. Okay, remember, we always torque these down. I don't care what anybody else in the shop is doing, always torque these down. We do not want this assembly coming loose. All right, so that is, don't forget to take whatever you're using to hang the caliper. Take that out. I found several wires and hooks in here that left behind by other techs, so we don't want to do that and create noise, and obviously it's a problem. We'll have to replace it at the shop, so make sure you take that out. Okay, last step on this, a couple of things. After we do any brake job, the very first thing we do when we get into the car is we pump the brakes. This piston is no longer contacting the pads and rotor as it normally would. So we need to pump the brakes, get this guy to where we've got a solid pedal. The first time you hit the pedal, it's probably going to go almost all the way to the floor. Just hit it a couple times, it'll get nice and solid. Okay? We're also, after we do that, we're going to make sure that the fluid level is full. Okay? When we push this piston back, fluid is going to, that's behind the piston, is going to go up the line and to the reservoir. So always want to make sure we've either removed the fluid up there or we've taken some of the fluid out, so that when this piston comes back and the one on the other side comes back, we don't shoot fluid out of the reservoir and have it make a big mess and drip all over the engine area and so forth. Remember, brake fluid is very, very harmful to paint, so we don't want to spill it anywhere. So we always want to make sure we get the fluid out of there before we push the pistons back, so that we don't make a mess. Okay.